I'm going to disappear for 1 second. I'll be right back.
No problem. Hi, everybody. Tonight, I have got it's a mid-Florida Bigfoot, and it is a research group.
Yeah.
And we have got Marie, we have got Mike, and we've got Chris.
Hello.
So,
Hello, everyone.
now then, right. So, Bigfoot. Something I've just started getting into over the past sort of like 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I am absolutely amazed at some of the things that I've been hearing, you know, sort of like on some of these programs on television. But TV and what actually happens in groups are two different things, as you probably know. So how did it start? Well, let's start with Marie then, ladies first. How did it start for you then, Marie? How did you get into this Bigfoot investigations and research?
Okay, so I have been a paranormal investigator for over 30 years. So it all started out with ghosts for me, ghost hunting. Then it evolved into aliens and UFOs, which, I still do that whenever I can with my friends. And then a lot of those people, a handful of people actually, who are into the UFO stuff, were also into the Bigfoot stuff. So I was like, I don't know about this. But I would go out with them into the Ocala National Forest, which is a hot spot. And so we started seeing we found some strange breaks and things. And I was like, okay, this is odd. But what really nailed it for me was when I was camping with my friends in the Ocala National Forest. It was the coldest night of the year. It was about 4 years ago in January. Like 1:30 in the morning, I was standing off to the side. There was like 12 people, at this camp area where we were at. And heard an incredible, loud, long, lengthy vocalization. A big howl, a big Bigfoot howl. And we just looked at each other like, deer in the headlights. And we're like, what the heck was that? And we're like, oh my God, that was a Bigfoot. And it was there was only one. And in order to make a call like that, a vocalization, it takes incredible lung capacity, something very large in order to be able to do something that long, and that loud. I would say it was probably about maybe a quarter mile away, where there were these 2 lakes in the area. That's where I'm guessing, it was kind of like the direction it was coming from, but it was just one, and that was it. And I'm like, oh my God. So that's what got me hooked. So
What about you, Mike? How did you get started in this?
Well, probably about 7 years ago now, I was anything but a believer. I didn't believe hardly any of this. But I was going on a fishing trip with one of my best friends at like 6:30 in the morning. And there's an old country road that I had to take to get back to where I would put the boat in at. And there's one part of the road that it turns 3 times, 3 curves. And as I went around the first curve, it looked like, I thought it was a guy. I thought it was just a dude kind of walking up. I could see about 75 yards ahead of me, coming off the road onto the road. And I'll never forget the road was cut in half by the light. The light was just starting to come up from the sun in the morning. And this thing walked from off the road onto the road. As I'm going around the curve, I see it walk into the light. And as it walked into the light, it went from like a dark, shadowy color, big looking guy, to reddish brown hair. And I could almost see it. And its arms were down past his knees. And he kind of had a half hitch turn as it looked. And it's almost like the iconic look. It just had his arms swung. He took a couple steps. I went around the next curve, and when I came back, it was gone. It was that fast. And I stopped the truck. My friend thought I lost my mind. Because he didn't see it. He was looking out the other window. I'm like, how did you not see that thing walking across the road? And he said, well, what are you talking about, walking across the road? I said, I just saw an animal walk across the road. He said, and animals don't walk across the road. I said, I don't know. This thing was walking across the road. And And he's like, "What, you think you saw Bigfoot?" I said, "I don't know what I just saw, but it just walked across the road." And it messed with me. And from that point forward, I went and watched everything I could watch, documentaries, everything to try and confirm my sanity. And that's really what got me into it. But a lot more interesting things since then.
Right. And what about you, Chris? What started doing this subject?
Well, Mr. Russ, that guy above
Chris.
me.
Mike.
Yeah, I became friends, neighbors with Mike, and I got him a job. We got to be a little closer as friends. He kept talking about this Bigfoot. I thought he was crazy. I mean, I've always been a conspiracy theorist kind of person, and eventually drug me out into the woods, and kind of haven't looked back since. Man, I've seen some weird things, heard some weird things, and witnessed some weird things, but I've never laid my eyes on one. I don't know if I ever will. But at the same time, I did the same thing as Mike. I started deep diving into the Bigfoot rabbit hole and haven't turned back since. So I'm kind of a newbie in the group, but I definitely come with some knowledge. I enjoy it and I have fun talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you've seen one and you've heard one, and
mm-hmm.
it's got you hooked, basically.
Right.
So I know that when I've been watching TV programs, I'm sort of like looking at these structures, what
mm-hmm.
People are talking about, like in the woods, where like hides, like where something beds down,
Yes.
But also the structures that seem to be made out of nearly fully grown trees,
Mm-hmm.
where
Mm-hmm.
there's some kind of patterns
Yes.
they're put up. So have you ever come across these patterns?
All the time.
Really?
Absolutely.
All the time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So like today when Mike and I were out to his active area, we found, the last time we were there were these two long sticks that were about 10 feet long, and they were shoved in the ground at about like a 45-degree angle. And so we haven't been back to this area in a couple months. And when we went back today, there was a third one added to it. And all three of them are pointed in the same direction, which was south. They're all next to each other, lined up, and they're all pointing the same way. So
then there was another one a couple feet away that was pointing the exact same direction.
And
and all the sticks are embedded in the ground, 6 to 8 inches or bigger, deeper into the ground.
Yeah.
And there's no way a tree limb falls out of a tree and falls like this angle and sticks into the mud. I don't know how it can happen.
And it's hard dirt. It's not even mud.
It's
very, because you pulled the third one out today and you had a hard time putting it back into the ground, and I posted a YouTube video about that today. But we find just about every kind of structure you can think of,
giant X's and the big giant X's between 40-foot trees.
A lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, like a shelter, like that shelter, Mike, that den or that blind or whatever it was today.
Mm-hmm.
This one, it's like a huge cluster of vines that are tightly woven, and there's like sticks in there as well. And it's the perfect hunting blind shelter or whatever for some kind of animal, large animal.
Yeah.
And because Mike could get in there, he could easily get in there.
You took pictures of me in there.
Yeah, I took a picture of you in there, and
I could share the screen. I've got it up on my other screen. I don't know if Russ would want that or not.
Yeah.
Give me a second. I'm familiar with the StreamYard, so give me 1 second. Share screen.
Yeah, no problem.
Can you get it off Facebook, Chris?
Yep, it's right here. So
Perfect.
He's just got to accept it on his end. There it is.
Yeah.
This is Mike inside the blind.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's all
There's-
vine.
There's only one thing to me personally. I mean, I'm a big lad, right? Yeah, and you know, if these Bigfoot, you know, these creatures are sort of like some of them are 7, 8, and 9 foot tall.
Right.
You know, I would struggle myself getting in such a small sort of like ideal.
Mm-hmm.
So something sort of like, you know, sort of like double my height.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, you know, what? How the heck would they get in that?
I'm thinking it's just more like a hunting blind type of thing, where they just kind of
Yeah,
squat down behind it, just
right.
using it as something to mask their shape, because there's a lot of deer in the area,
Yeah.
and I think that's what they're using them for.
So rather than something which is going to be a semi-permanent sort
Right.
of like build, this is something like a makeshift.
Yes.
Get down,
Mm-hmm.
get, you know, hide,
Yes.
and keep out of the way for us, you know, maybe just a few hours, and then get away. I get it. Yeah, it makes
It's
more
only
sense that way.
it's only a
Hey,
few
Chris.
yards. It's only a
Yeah.
few yards away from where we found what we called a tripwire. It was a vine that was stretched out between two trees, about 40 foot long, about 3 foot off the ground, and perfectly horizontal, like the perfect height of a deer. And it was right where you could run a deer right into that tripwire. We
Yeah.
found some really unique things back here.
I know that the Romans over in this country, they made traps out of vines and
Mm.
thorns. You know, sort of like, so if you were, you know, like getting close to where they were, you'd come a cropper. You know, you'd have a vine in your foot or something, or you know, a big a needle. You know, so I can understand that.
Mm-hmm.
You know. But I mean that is incredible, and I mean
Chris, do you have the picture of the sticks?
as well.
Yeah, I sure do.
Yeah.
I've got it ready, actually.
Chris is going to pull up the one with the sticks so you can see what that looks
Right,
like.
this is good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it's hard to tell. Can you see it? One,
Yeah,
2, 3.
yes.
There's 3 of them, and
yeah, they're going in. These are driven into the ground.
they're
Wow.
shoved in the ground. 3 of them next to each other.
You know, they don't fall in this angle all just accidentally, and they get shoved 8-10 inches in the ground, 6 to 8, 10. I mean, they're in there pretty good, and it just that don't happen.
And
It
they
just
all
naturally
point,
don't
they all
happen.
point right. They all point right to where another trail is.
Yeah,
Right.
all 3 of them are pointing south, like a south direction.
So sometimes we feel like these are directional type of things, markers for
yeah,
them.
well, if they're all pointing south,
Mm-hmm.
that would, you know, it would look that way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it definitely would.
Did you have any
Yes.
other pictures on here you wanted to show? Let me back up and see.
Let me think.
That's amazing.
These are all from today. Let's back up a little bit.
Yeah.
There, it looks
That's
like a
a
nice print.
possible print. Yes. Yes.
So we deal in a subterranean that gets a little tricky to get real good solid prints. We will get some on occasion on some muddier areas, but we find tons of these indentions that are just like, they're huge sometimes.
Yeah, like you say, it's got all the leaves and sticks and everything. It does not make a good impression at all, and you can't see toes typically. But you can tell there's an impression there. So
Oh yeah.
And Mike has, casted some prints in this area. So we do know that, they are there.
Right.
All right. So these,
It's like Mike has a matching pair of 16 inches, 16-inch prints.
I have a pair of 16 3/4 inch matching left and right foot, and a matching 13 3/4. And they're the 13 3/4 are 5.5 wide at the toe and 4 inches wide at the heel, and the 16 3/4 are 6.5 wide at the 7.5 wide at the toe and 4.5 at the heel.
Can you play the video, Chris?
Yeah, I don't know if I selected the sound. Hold on.
There was another. Okay.
I
right, just
didn't. Hold on.
wondering.
I'd have to stop sharing and retry. Let me
All right,
get to
no
the
worries.
video.
No worries.
Because you
No worries.
gotta, on this, you gotta select the sound before you play it. So it's just one of those things. Find it. I don't know if to see the video. Is that on a different upload?
It's another post.
That
This
might
should be right
it.
after that one. YouTube
Okay. Yep. I see it.
posted.
Yeah, I
Let's
wish
see
we
if I
had.
go to it.
I wish I had the pictures up for you of all the castings and everything.
Yeah.
Just don't have
Well, there's
them
another
ready right
time.
now.
There's there's another time you can come and show us. But I mean, like you say, to get those long sticks into soil and hard soil, maybe 6-8 inches into the ground, that takes some doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially when the ground is hard. It's not even mud. It's hard.
This is it.
It's like root. It's like roots. It's like all plant matter.
Right.
Well, I got a video up. I don't know if the sound will work, but
yeah, but you'll see Mike trying to put the stick back in the ground. Okay.
And
is it gonna
my
play?
audio's up. I don't know if it'll play audio or not.
So I'm just
yeah.
Yeah, so right now these are just palmetto palms. I'm just talking about, introducing us and just talking about what we found. So here's the sticks.
Our area is very tropical, like a rainforest.
Wow.
So yeah. I mean, so you can see he pulls it out of the ground. But he can't, he's having a hard time he can't put it back in the ground. Now, this thing, that's how he was able to do it.
Takes a couple hands to get that to happen.
Yeah, that's not just natural tree fall. That's not gravity.
No, that's been put there purposely. You can
yeah,
tell.
see, there's the second one. That's like 10 feet long, that stick.
And this is like a few yards away from our gifting area.
Yes.
So you call it a gifting area. Is that where you leave gifts for these Bigfoots?
Treats and things. They seem to have a sweet tooth. They have a sweet tooth.
Wow.
So, Mike, why don't you talk a little bit about your gifting area and what we found out there?
I've been doing it for about almost 2 years in this area, about a year and a little over a year and a half. But I've been having interactions with them out there. And every time I put stuff out there, it's gone. Usually it's Reese's peanut butter cups. And multiple times I've put the Reese's peanut butter cups out, come back, and the wrapper is torn open, not bitten open, or it's torn open, but I have found the white part completely bitten, where they took the whole Reese's cup and bit through the white paper.
That's Marie's doing that part. She likes Reese's.
I can't help myself. I love Reese's.
And I've actually I've found hairs on the wrappers before also that we've saved and analyzed.
I wonder if you could get any fingerprints off of them.
We're trying new things. We're trying tape traps. We're trying some different things lately. But
Mike does have a fingerprint.
This area is really cool. We get a lot of interaction.
You do have a fingerprint though.
I did have something like a fingerprint.
Well, not on the Reese's, but you have one on a cast, on the back of a cast.
That's right. That's right. I forgot about
tell that story.
Yeah, tell him that story. Tell Russ that story.
So I was out in an area by myself, and I found a print that was funny looking. Well, I determined that it was an alligator footprint. So I was casting the print just to see what it looked like. I really couldn't tell. Later on, I realized it was an alligator. But so I made the print. So when you make a print, you pour everything in to the print, and the top of it is flat, typically. Well, I walked off, and I was letting it dry. It takes about 20, 30 minutes for it to dry. So I'm out walking around, and I come back, and I'd heard a noise, and it almost like something ran by me. And I kind of got that feeling of like, I didn't feel like I was alone anymore. And I came back to go check my cast because I was getting a little nervous being out there by myself. And when I come back to check the cast, it looked like 2 big fingers went right through the middle of it. Or 3, I'm sorry, it was 3. 3 fingers looked like it went through the middle of it. And then other smaller fingers, like little indentions, were on it, like it was like a group walked by, and like they all touched it real quick, and as they walked by,
Like,
touched the
hey,
cabin.
what's this white stuff? And they like stuck their fingers in it because we have two little tiny fingertip impressions, and then the three
with
finger
with
drag.
with fingerprint impressions on it.
Yep. Just a touch. Actual fingerprint.
Wow.
It was like it walked by and just touched it. So one put his fingers through it, and the other one put his finger on it and like touched it.
And probably did
Well,
this.
you know, it's funny you should say that because I did some painting, right? Yeah, and my window is close to the a road.
Mhm.
It faces a road, and no matter if you put wet paint and saying that the windows and it's wet paint, you'll always get somebody that'll come
Right.
and
Mhm.
touch, and
Right.
children especially. So it's like it could be a family day out walking past, and you will get that. Oh, look
Mhm.
at this! Oh, is it wet? Oh, yeah.
In this area, I know I'm pretty positive there's family groups out there, and they're very intrigued by me and my son. I go in there a lot with my son, and they like to follow us. I know they follow us around. They like to see what we're doing. My son and I communicate. We've had vocals multiple times. Had a lot of vocalizations with them. My son, they love my son, and his
Yeah.
higher pitched noises.
So do you do this? I mean, I see people on television doing stuff like tree knocking, and sometimes making like these sounds of a Bigfoot.
The hood,
So
the hoot.
do you do that sort of thing as well?
Yep. We I've learned I've after about, like I said, a year and a half or over a year and a half of going in here, I've learned the way they act. When you first walk into an area, they mimic owls a lot. And you'll walk into an area and you hear that whoo, 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 it goes off, and you'll hear it in three different areas. It goes off as soon as you walk in. That's them saying, all right, someone's here, someone's in our area. And then they do that twice, and then it stops. And as soon as it stops, it'll get ghostly quiet, and you know they're there. They're coming in on you. And then they're going to follow you around. Or if they're way out away from you, you'll make just a whoo real loud, and you'll hear it come back to you. Whoo, and you'll hear one over another direction. Sometimes, usually it's in like 2 or 3 different directions, and they communicate back and forth with each other doing it. That's how they're letting each other know I'm probably gauging their distance and wherever they're at.
Mhm.
It's pretty incredible to hear in the woods. It carries. It's really, really neat to hear.
Yeah, typically we don't do like tree knocks. We've heard tree knocks, and
Right.
we've also heard like trees fall. But we typically don't do the tree knocks. We don't do too many howls. Mike does, his call.
Yeah.
But the rest of us really don't do it because we don't know what it means. That's the thing. You're making these, you're mimicking them. They're obviously saying something that we don't understand. So, do you
might
want
be
to take that
offending them.
risk?
Yeah.
A lot of times Mike's just making a call, or I'll even do it if I'm not by myself. But it's more or less just to say, "Hey, I'm here. We're here."
Yeah.
You're walking
Right.
into the living room. You don't want to really surprise anybody, and not that you're
Yes.
really going to, but
Yeah.
on a windy day or things going on, they might not hear you. But yeah, it's just a courtesy call, really.
Yeah,
So-
more like a calming, it's not anything drastic. It's not a scream or anything. It's more like a calming, peaceful kind
Knocking
of
on the
sound.
door. We're knocking. Hey, we're coming
Yeah. But yeah,
This is
typically we do
interesting.
not do tree knocks at all.
No.
Mm-mm.
So one of the things that I've been, like I was saying earlier on, with like the trees and the different shapes that seem to have X's and what have you. But I've seen some that look very runic. Sort of like I've got my book of, with me being Norse, it's one of these things, and my book of runes and what have you.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
some of these like structures, and they seem to be very runic.
Yes.
Sort of like very symbolic.
Yes.
And you can't get away from the fact when you look at the runes and you go, well, you know, that means this, or you know, I mean, our alphabet is very runic anyway, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and if you have a look, it's sort of like very similar. So I wonder, you know, where does that come from?
I don't know. And somebody
Good question.
I've seen on Facebook, they've been posting a bunch of the rune, because it's not just like structures, but at times they will leave like what we
Sandra,
call glyphs on the ground. What was that?
it's Sandra. He comes on a lot. He's a friend. He's saying, "Evening, everybody."
Hello. Hi. So some of the glyphs, which
Yeah,
are patterns on the ground, like sticks are arranged in a certain pattern. And you know, this woman on Facebook, you know, she's been doing a analysis of it, and she has found a few symbols that are all exactly the same rune that you like you're talking about. It's pretty amazing. It's something I've never really thought about, but I'm going to, you know, look more into that
yeah. I mean, I could
because
Right.
see it straight away. I could see it straight away. You know, sort of like because I read runes and well, I try to,
really,
and
that's good to know. That's good to know.
you know, sort of like, and it just stands out so much.
Yeah.
It,
What
we find
what
stuff
Chris?
that looks like it's Blair Witch Project stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, I
Some of
think
it
that's
does.
yeah. I mean, that's more. There's runic and then there's Celtic and what have you. Very similar. They're very similar anyway. But the fact is that you can tell whether they're runic or Celtic. You can tell what it means.
Hmm.
You can see what the symbol is.
Hmm.
Yeah, we'll
And
definitely have to pass some stuff over to you as we find it. I
Yes.
found it interesting that I partake in another podcast, and we have one lady that's out in Washington and another gentleman in Mississippi, and they've found the same glyphs
yeah,
Hmm.
that far apart, which for us that's a couple thousand miles apart, and they found the exact same glyphs. You know, it's
Yeah.
pretty interesting. I mean, how does that happen? But you know,
Yeah.
it's
I mean that's intelligence. You've got something with intelligence that is.
mhm.
It's a form of writing. You know.
Mhm.
So
It's just never something that we've, you know, considered, you know, but you know, you got to be open-minded in this field with Bigfoot, you know,
well, this is it.
and because we're trying to figure it out. We're trying to, you know, put
Yeah.
together the pieces of the puzzle, trying to figure it all out. And every little thing means something, I think, you know, it's all, you can't just leave out pieces of the puzzle. You'll never figure it out. So you got to be
No.
very open-minded.
So the other thing is, have you come across the the lights in the woods? You know,
Yes.
like these ball
Orbs.
lights.
Orbs.
Yes. The
Well,
orbs.
orbs, lights, call them what you will. Yeah.
Yes. 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 Definitely.
And
Um,
what colours have you come across? Because you know, I've seen different programs and I've seen different coloured orbs or lights.
mhm. Yeah. Now, a lot of people experience orbs in the woods that are blue, and
Blue.
they think that that is associated with Bigfoots. Now, all the ones that I've seen are bright white LED white lights. I haven't seen blue ones at all.
No.
But so I had an incredible, gigantic orb when Mike and I were on the in South Florida by Lake Okeechobee. He was on the east side. There's three wilderness areas, wildlife
Yeah.
management areas. They're connected together, and that's where like the skunk apes tend to be. And so we were doing a nighttime investigation in an empty campground, this big open field just surrounded by trees, and each of us had thermal cameras or night vision cameras.
Yeah.
And so I have a thermal camera, and the thing is I love the thermal cameras, but the thing is, it really messes up your eye. Mine's a monocular, so it'll dilate my eye. So I have to I can only look around for like a minute, and I have to put it down.
Yeah.
So I'm just sitting there, and I'm just staring at the trees, and right in front of me, this giant orb flashed in front of the tree. It was bigger than a basketball. It was huge, huge. And it just oh my God, what was that? It was exactly where I was looking, the exact tree and everything. And it started moving to the left. It got smaller and started moving to the left, and there was no fireflies, by the way. And it goes behind these bushes. And I'm like, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? And what comes out on the other side of the bush looks like a green firefly. And I said there was no fireflies that night.
No.
All of a sudden, we go from a basketball size orb to a smaller size orb going past the trees, goes behind the bushes, this little green, a firefly light, and it comes right to me. It comes within 5 feet of me. I've never had a firefly come directly at me. And then it turned, went right to my shoulder, and disappeared. Gone. That was one night. The next night, Mike and I were in a different campground, we're doing the same kind of thing.
I didn't really believe in the orb thing.
Yeah. And I got kind of bored, and I said, come on, Mike, let's go take a walk. And I had my thermal camera. And we look over in this one part, and we see this ball of light orb just going back and forth. Again, there's no fireflies. And it was big. It was about that big. And Mike's like, there's somebody over there in the woods. It looked like somebody had a flashlight walking around in the woods trying to find something. Because it was just going back and forth. And I'm looking at my thermal camera, and I'm like, Mike, there's no one there. And he's like, there's no way. There is somebody there with their phone on or flashlight on or something. Nothing.
It looked like somebody running with a cell phone on, holding the cell phone in the air, running with it.
Well, it was just moving back and forth. And again, no fireflies. We don't know what it is. But again, orbs 2 nights in a row. So pretty crazy stuff. But yeah, typically a lot of the people experience blue ones. But we haven't.
And the other thing, what I've seen, and you just said about using thermal imaging, where it looks like there's been, sort of like a person hiding behind a tree, and sort of like looking, from the side of the tree at the people there with the cameras. Have you come across anything like that also?
Yes, we have.
You want to talk about it, Mike?
So we had a wild encounter one night. We were out in the Green Swamp, which is a pretty hot spot area, and we were doing a big investigation with a bunch of multiple groups of people, and I walked off with another person, and we kind of walked away from everybody, and he had a thermal running, and I said, hey, I'm going to run down to this tree line, and I'm just going to follow that tree line down, because if we've attracted anything, that's where they're going to be. So I'm going to go down and see if I hear anything or see anything, smell anything. So I started walking down the tree line, and I got kind of like a little feeling to walk in. I saw like a little opening, and I walked in where there was a berm. If you've ever seen how they dig a fire berm, they dig it and it leaves like a hill on each side. And well, this was a really old one, a probably 30-year-old fire berm, and there's big trees coming out of the middle of it. I walked into it. It's real bushy, and I walked in, and it takes you up about 6 foot up in the air, and I heard something walking, and usually you don't get to hear these things walking. I mean, it's a person. Yeah. And I'm like, hello? And it kept walking. And I got like this kind of like eerie feeling. And I realized that thing was walking off because it was trying to pull me away from what was beside me. And when I turned and put my headlamp on, I was 15 feet away from something that was every bit of 7.5 foot, 8 foot tall. And it was in between two trees it was next to the tree with its shoulders between the tree limb, where the tree limb was. It looked like nappy dreaded hair. And it just turned a little bit like that and didn't move. I jumped, turned my headlamp off, which I don't know why, because that's what I've been wanting to find. It was right there. And I turned the light off, and I turn and I come out of the woods, and I was scared. Like it scared me. It caught me big time off guard. And I come out of the woods. Well, later on, the guy I was with says, "Oh my God," he said. I said, "Did you see anything?" He said, "I don't think I saw anything." I said, "What happened?" I said, "I was just right next to something. Something was right there. It looked like nappy dreaded hair." Well, later on, we go look at the thermal. There was a thermal image right there where he was standing. You could see me come out of the woods. You could see it still standing there next to the tree, the hot spot. It was pretty intense.
It's the best butt pucker thermal you ever seen, because Mike turned his butt and hauled butt right back towards them. It was hilarious.
I was scared. I was definitely nervous.
He hightailed it out of
there. You're supposed to be getting them. You're supposed to be catching them.
I could have taken 3 steps and grabbed a handful of hair, probably.
You say that until you get in front of one, right? And then all of a sudden,
you might have been very lucky to get away alive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know.
That's the way I'm looking at it. I said, "All right, well, I'll be close enough."
I mean, right. So this is something what I'm going to ask you now, because a lot of people, stray away from some of these questions. And what I'm looking at is people that have gone missing in these areas and people that say that they've been attacked, or there's people sort of like, even, I don't know how true it is, they say that some of these departments have closed some areas down because there's people being, sort of like killed. So is anything, like that happened, or have you come across that yourselves?
Not in our area. That's more of a big park type of thing.
Yeah.
Like the big giant parks in the middle of the USA, and up in the Pacific Northwest and those areas, millions
Tennessee,
and millions of acres.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some big national parks that they've had some instances happen with various things, and they'll shut certain sections down completely.
Ours seem to be more just, I don't want to say friendly. I'll say they seem to be more curious about what we're doing, and they don't mind us. Right. But that's not always true, though, because I think they can set the alarm off, and they produce some type of energy, and you can feel it if you're too close. And I'm getting close enough to where I've had ear pain for 3 days in a row from being too close to it, from a growl that I had encountered.
Yeah, which is typically infrasound is what they say it is. Yeah, so Mike's definitely been hit with it. He's like gotten physically ill, like throwing up and stuff. He's been very, very, very affected by it. Like 3 times, at least 3 times.
I used to go into the woods before I met the group. I used to go by myself a lot, and I'm like Bart Simpson. Ow, quit it! Ow, quit it! I just keep going back in. I don't know why. I couldn't stop. So I just wouldn't learn my lesson. I kept going back in, but now I think I've learned that it's more of a. I think it's when you first go into an area, if they don't know what you are, who you are, that's their defense. I think it's their defense system. Because I go into my area and this never happens. You'll never feel that energy. You don't. We've literally had we've had a meter, and we've been sitting there getting radio waves in the middle of the woods. I mean, dangerous levels. And you go into certain areas, and it's like that. You go into my area, you'll never have it go off. It's like certain areas they accept you, certain areas maybe they don't want to accept you. I think depends on the group of which group you're around, you know?
And
I believe
is
they
any
do.
of these areas where you go, would you say that they'd ever had military involvement there? You know, like, or training, military training or anything?
Not in our area, but Marie, I'll let you take that one.
Thanks.
Well, Ocala.
Funny you say that. I'm just going to mention what I just saw today on. So I pulled my trail cams out of Mike's area, and I've only looked at one of the trail cams, but on the trail cam, I captured 2 sheriffs, policemen with their canine dog going into our area. We don't know what that's about. I was like, what the heck is this? Why are there policemen with a canine dog going into our area?
But he was saying, like, kind of like with the military testing, like Ocala would be the closest thing to that with a bombing range.
Yes, Ocala has the bombing range. So, like on Expedition Bigfoot, I don't know if you've watched that show at all, Russ.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the very end, the last couple shows or whatever, they were chasing after this Bigfoot. And they chased it basically to some government military land out there. And that's where the Bigfoot went. It disappeared into that area, but the guys on the show couldn't get into that area because it's restricted, right? It's government.
That's right.
Military cannot get in there. But, you know, if I was a Bigfoot, that's probably the safest place to be, is on government land where no one can get to you. You'd probably feel pretty safe out there. I don't know. But Ocala does have a bombing range. So, again, it's fenced off. Most likely, there's probably some, you know, a family living in there, you know, until they, you know, do their bombings, and then they go off and they go, you know, go out elsewhere, and then they come back, you know. But that's pretty common, I believe. But in our area, we don't have, I mean, Ocala has the bombing range, but like the Green Swamp where we're at, no, there's no military, you know, area.
No.
Just UFOs.
Just UFOs.
That's the other thing I was just going to come around to this now. So we've got like orbs, and you know, the other thing that we've been hearing about, which is that some of the time that there's UFOs being seen where these creatures are. So have you ever come across these yourselves?
I have not, but I have friends who have. And there's a researcher in Ocala that he was out doing Bigfoot research by himself. He was camping in the forest by himself. He was woken up in the middle of the night with this giant beam of light shining down on his tent. It scared him badly. That happened twice to him.
Wow.
In the Green Swamp, I have a friend of mine who was leaving the Green Swamp, and he saw this blue bar of light flying right over the trees, right directly on top of the trees. And he was like, what is that? But I have another friend who was taking a bike ride in the Green Swamp, and it was a very foggy day. He was by himself. He was on an electric bike, and he's just cruising down the road. He starts hearing what sounds like a bell, like bells, like tones.
Yeah.
And he was like, what the heck? There's no schools around there. You know, there's nobody around. He's the only person, right? He's hearing bells, tones. And then he felt like a static charge, like the area he was in, like static electricity. And, you know, when it's foggy, That means
Yeah.
it's humid. You shouldn't
He
be
said
feeling
he
any
said it
kind
was
of
really
static.
foggy out. He said it
Yeah,
was like super foggy, like real thick.
super foggy. And so you shouldn't have that static electricity in the air kind of feeling. So then he takes his phone and he's just like taking pictures as he's riding his bike. Sure enough, right by a tree, it looks like an alien with big black eyes standing there. He got a picture of it.
It's creepy.
Wow.
And it's unbelievable.
Wow, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I'll have to send that to you so you can see it. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So
It's
yeah,
almost see-through. It was creepy looking.
yeah, Green Swamp, there's definitely been UFO sightings.
So
Definitely.
what about, so we've got orbs, we've got Bigfoot, we've got UFOs, and what about these things that we hear people talking about also, like shadow people turning up?
Mm-hmm.
Have you
Yeah,
come across them yourselves?
I have. I
Wow.
have. And I don't think the guys know this one. This is I was doing a sky watch looking for UFOs. I was over at another friend's house. And it was kind of slow night and I just kind of got bored. So I just like turned sideways in my chair. So I'm looking at this little swampy area on our property. And I'm just looking over there and I see this big shadow figure, probably at least 7 feet tall. It just appeared, it walked maybe 40 feet and disappeared. And I was like, what the heck was that? But it was big. It was at least 7 feet tall, at least. But
Wow.
it looked like a shadow and it looked very similar to like what they saw on Expedition Bigfoot when Dr. Maria Mayer and Ronnie LeBlanc saw that shadow going across the
That's
water,
right, yeah.
right? Passing across the water. That's what it looked like. It just manifested and then it just appears and then it just disappeared. And it's like, what is that? So I have had that experience before. For sure.
So one of the other things, when we're talking about these areas, and there seems to be water or lakes and swamps around,
Yes.
and some of the times, like some of these like trees seem to have been put into the lakes and the swamps, sort of like in a way that it is unnatural,
Mm-hmm.
to put a tree in
Yes.
upside down. You
My
know what I mean? So it's like, it's obvious that it hasn't fallen, and it's been put in and it's been purposely put in upside down.
mm-hmm.
Would you say that would be what I would call, if I'd seen it myself, I would think this is like a warning. You know what I mean? This is like, keep out.
So Mike, you want to talk about what you found?
In an area that I grew up in, I go back there used to go back by myself, and there's an off trail next to a really big trail, and as I was walking down, I looked to the right and I see this tree leaning up against there. Well, it's in a pine, it's an all pine tree area.
Yeah.
And this was a cypress tree. Well, the cypress tree was about 40 foot long and it was inverted, and the root ball was up in the air between a Y, so it was like that way. There you go.
Yeah.
It was just like that, leaning up in the air with the root ball, 40 foot, and the root ball is probably 20 foot up in the air, and that got a lot of attention from a lot of people because nobody in Florida, until that I knew of, had ever seen one of those like that in Florida. They see them out in different areas, but not in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So as I know of, that's the first one I've seen in Florida. I've seen branches upside down.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first actual tree that I've ever seen completely upside down, and it was a cypress tree. And the closest cypress trees that were in that area were probably 200 yards away. So it's like it was dragged over there, and I believe you on that one. I think it was trying to say, "Look at how big I am," I dragged this cypress tree over here and I put it upside down right here. Look how big I am. That's what it looked like.
Wow.
Hey, Chris, what about that shelter area in Mike's area where you noticed the branches were dragged from a different spot?
Hmm. Yeah, we found me and Mike and I were going out to his area one time, and we walk up to a spot, and he's like, "Well, looks like they've been doing some redecorating." And there was 3 big branches. At first, we both thought they were trees because these branches were so big. Bases of them were 6 to 8 inches at least. They're broken off, and they were maple trees that were, almost dead. The leaves were purple, turning brown. So it was pretty fresh. They were fresh breaks. Looked around. I was like, Mike, where did these come from? And that tree was nowhere around. If it was a broken tree, we couldn't find any trunks, anything
No maples,
around
no
anywhere.
maple
So
trees.
we walk into a new area further out into the swamp than we normally go to. It was a little drier that part of the season, and we come across the origination tree, and it was over a good 100 yards away. And these branches were at least 25, 30 foot long. I mean, they were long. They were basically big enough to be trees, each branch. This was a huge maple tree that it got toppled over. Might have been a storm or something, but something took 3 big branches, and they probably would have took every bit of 6 guys to carry these 3 branches to the distance that they were through this thick swamp and brush
And
to
pile
lay
them up.
them all 3 together in this one little area. And it basically, when the leaves were there, it looked like a blind. But I mean, anybody in their right mind, because Mike and I picked one of them up and started just to see if we would drag it. I mean, we could have made it, I don't know, 20, 30 feet if we really wanted to. I mean, but we wouldn't have drug it all the way from over there. Anybody in their right mind would have said, hey, hold on, let me go get my chainsaw. I'll be right back.
We tried to move. We together tried to move one, and we couldn't move one together.
Yeah, we could have, but not very far. And we definitely would have made it from where that tree was with one of them. And we're big guys. So it's not like we're little dudes, but it was just definitely one of those like, whoa, one of those moments you just say, wow, okay, what in the hell did that? Not who, what?
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is it. I mean, this is a big thing. So, what would you say? Because I mean, I'm hearing all sorts of people, and they've all got different ideas of what they're looking at. Bigfoot. Is it a creature? Is it is it man? Is it half man, half ape, or is it alien? Some kind of alien creature. So
I guess time will tell, won't it?
Pardon?
So I guess time will tell, won't it? We don't really know. I mean, that's the big mystery, right? So I mean, we apparently David Pilates has gotten enough DNA to prove that there's the mother side of the DNA is actually human, but the father side, the nuclear DNA, is unknown. It's not in the genome data bank. So what is it? We don't know yet.
I lean towards the side of it being more of an animal.
Yeah, me too.
More of a real earthly animal.
A flesh and blood creature of some sort, whether it's whatever it is.
And that can be the human. Yeah, it's got some abilities. Whether I don't know how they can disappear the way they do, but there's something a little more than just intelligence involved for us. You know what I mean? There's a reason why we don't catch them all the time.
I've found 7 different footprint sizes in my one area alone.
Wow!
All the way down to 6 inches. So there's
we walked in there and it looked like we walked in his area and it looked like kids were run around barefoot in a playground out in the middle of the swamp.
Well, that's what they will be doing. I mean, if they are, a sort of like a different species of half human or half whatever, they will be basically doing that because that's their area. That's where they live.
Yeah.
And you would have the young ones, the offspring.
Yeah, you go into certain areas, looks like a playground. You go to a certain area, it
Well,
looks
there
like a
would be.
playground.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know.
I found like little spots, not in Mike's area, like in other areas I've been in, where the ground's all pressed down, and there's like smaller structure things, kind of like it just reminds me of like a playground nursery area, like a little juvenile baby Bigfoot is practicing building things,
Mhm.
because you'll
Yeah.
find some strange things out there that are smaller, not necessarily these giant structures. And
Yeah.
fascinating. It's
Yeah.
fascinating.
I found a spot. There was one spot, Mike, where there's two different places, and they're within 10 feet of each other, something like that, 10, 15 feet of each other. There's three sticks, and they're all, I don't know, probably about 16 inches at most, the height of them, shoved into the ground. And three all next to each other, three shoved in the ground, and all three touching each other. So how would, I mean, there was three separate sticks. They weren't, one branch that fell into the ground and like just lunged itself in the ground. There's three separate sticks pushed into the ground and touching each other. And then another set of three 15 feet away.
Mhm.
And these sticks were not heavy enough. You could throw as high as you want. You drop it from a plane. They would have stuck themselves in the ground as deep as they were by themselves. They were too light. They didn't have enough heaviness to it. So those little things, that's what I think. That was the first thing in my memory. It was the same thing. It was like probably some little baby ones messing around, sticking stuff in
Yeah,
the ground, making little structures.
practicing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Well,
mimicking.
it could be basically like playing a game, some kind of game.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
What else do they have to do out in the woods?
Well, yeah.
That's their
this is
playground.
it.
Well, another spot that Mike has, it's we can't tell you where it's at or anything, but Mike, the Jurassic Park area,
Hmm.
where it looks like they may be. It's right next to a highway, an interstate, very very busy highway, and it almost looks like that they probably sit there and they watch the cars go by, right? That's
Yeah.
the feeling that we've gotten from that spot, because there's just so much little stuff. It's all pressed down, and this is the area where there's no humans go into, except we're sneaking into these areas. But right, Mike, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah. It's like we're their entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And one of my most active area is backs up to a neighborhood. The most active area we go into, it backs right up to the back of a neighborhood. The only thing that separates the neighborhood and the swamp is a creek or a small river.
Yeah. So a lot of our activity, we're not having to go super deep in the woods or
No.
swamps.
No.
We're finding most of our stuff within a mile of civilization, or it's not that far. And like Mike says, we kind of think that they're curious about us. Maybe they feel safer being closer to people. Plus, we got garbage cans, right? They can go through garbage cans like a bear would. It's
Lots of
there's
reports of dumpsters.
yes,
I've noticed this last dry season that we've made it out deeper, way deeper in
yes,
the swamps
yes,
than we had never made it. Definitely nowhere anybody goes. And it seems like to me, the more and deeper that we go, there's less activity.
correct.
Like it stays closer to where the homes are.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting. But yeah, there's definitely still places that people don't go though.
No,
Yeah.
Just not. They're not going to go hang out in swamps. People just don't go play in swamps much, except for us.
Yeah, except for us crazy ones.
Well, it's nearly an hour, and it's been a fascinating insight to Bigfoot researchers. It really has, and very interesting. It's been a great evening, and I'd like to say thank you very much for coming on the show.
Well,
Thank
thank
you
you
for
for
having
having
us.
us, Russ. Thank you.
Oh,
We
you're
really
quite
appreciate it.
welcome. You'll have to come on again, like I say,
Yeah.
because you know, if you've got any video, any pictures, you know, like just come on and show us what you've got, and
We can be
you
a
know, you're
lot better
quite
prepared.
welcome. Right then.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate it, Russ.
Oh, you're quite welcome. So I'll say again, thank you very much for coming on the show. And I will say good night to you all. And thank